in calving, we're always talking about it being cold, but obviously there's going to be fall calving situations where maybe we have these hot days like we're going to see this coming weekend. So just like in the cold temperatures, these calves have to really regulate their body temperature in this perfect zone. It's called the thermoneutral zone. All that means is there's this special temperature where they don't need a lot of energy to keep themselves warm or keep themselves cool. So once we get over 77 degrees, that's the average where these calves start to show an increase in energy requirements. So obviously, if we're going to have 100+ degree day, those newborn babies are going to be burning a ton of energy. And the way to keep that back is to get a good colostrum meal. So we know that colostrum contains 3 times the amount of energy than just regular milk. So it's really, really imperative that these babies get up, that they have the ability to suckle, and that they're going to get that first colostrum meal. And if they aren't on their own, then that's where we would need to intervene as producers.
Okay. And what does that intervention look like?
So the biggest thing, you want to try and provide the shade and the cooling that you can for the cows. But what you're watching for is if after the calf has been born, if it's not getting up in the normal time frame. So, they really need to have a colostrum meal within a couple hours of birth. The time frame starts to kind of tick down after 4-6 hours. We start to see closure of those gut absorption sites. So we need to make sure that calf is getting up. So if you notice that there's a lot of like lethargy in those babies, so basically they're just really, really tired, they aren't showing a lot of movement, a lot of vigor to get up and nurse, then that's when you need to be, you need to get involved. The first thing would be to remove that calf from any sort of heat source. So if they're in direct sunlight and not in any shade, especially if they're on dry, bare ground, because vegetation is going to help dissipate some of that heat. So if they're in a dry lot situation, remove them from that area, put them into some place where it can be cooler, if you have an inside space or somewhere out of this direct sunlight. And then also making sure that there is some air movement. We want to make sure if these calves are wet, we're getting them dried off. We've got some air cooling movement. But then the other biggest thing, like I already mentioned, is making sure we get that colostrum into them. So one really easy way to check it out is to stick your fingers into the calf's mouth and see if it sucks on it. So a calf with good vigor is going to just do like a little sucking motion on your finger. So it's going to think that that's the cow's teat, and it's going to go ahead and try and take a meal. If you don't have that, then we know that these calves are going to be at much more of a risk to not be able to get the colostrum. So you need to be able to give that to them. So that would be probably by tubing, some sort of colostrum. The best case would be from mom. But again, if it's really, really hot, we don't want to stress the cow either. So if you can't get her caught to get that colostrum milked out, then you want to reach for a replacer. So we're looking for a quality replacer. We get that mixed up, get that into the calf. You can potentially add in some electrolytes if you're dealing with maybe a calf that's a little bit older, maybe one that's 24, 48 hours old. It's past that colostrum window. Then we talk about maybe using some electrolytes just to make sure that we get on top of a dehydration status. If it's really extreme and you have a calf that is not responding, perhaps it's not standing on its own or has no suckle at all, then that might be where you need to intervene with IV fluid therapy. So contacting your veterinarian would be your best case.
Okay. And how do you know what's a good colostrum supplement or replacer?
Yeah, so reading the label is really important. So there is a difference between replacer and supplements. So replacers will have a higher IgG level. So that's the immunoglobulin, that's the antibodies that we're trying to get into that calf. So those will usually have 100 or above. So recent studies have shown that we actually need to get up to 200 grams of that IgG into the calf. So make sure you read the label and see, because a supplement, even though it's going to be less expensive, is going to have less of that IgG in it. So even if that's all that you have, if you have multiple bags of that, you can mix them together. It's just the volume load gets a little high. So, trying to get all that into a calf can be challenging. So make sure you're just reading the label correctly and you're reaching for the replacer.
And mixing it correctly.
Yes, definitely mixing it. And some of those, most of them have the same, the same labels on how you can mix them together, but there are some that mix a little bit easier than others. So I know some producers have actually taken like an old blender and used that to make sure that it gets mixed up, because that is important that we don't have chunks sitting in there, because it can sit into the stomach of that calf and kind of putrefy a little bit. So you want to make sure that that gets mixed up well.
Okay. All right. So is there anything else that producers need to be especially aware of right now from either the cow or the calf side?
The only other obvious thing is that we want to make sure that we try to minimize any sort of handling. So, if you have a process where normally a calf is born and you go out right away and you tag or you're doing banding or something, if it is hot, I would definitely just hold off. So I'm really a hands-off type of person. When a calf is born, I want to make sure that that cow and the calf mother up and they get that colostrum meal first. So if they are in a nice shaded area, I would just hold off on doing any sort of that extra working until either like cool in the late in the evening, or again early in the morning. And remember that even if you have some calves that are a little bit older, they won't be able to recover really fast from these heat events. So it does take 4 to 6 hours for that calf body temperature to drop back down. So just kind of be patient on doing any sort of working or movement around those groups.
Okay. And check more frequently this time of year, I'm guessing, with the heat.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I would increase, if it's hot for you, it's hot for them. We know that it is bad out there. So just make sure that you're just on top of as much as we can prevent and just take care of yourself as well. So make sure that you have water for yourself and that you're just being careful when you're out there. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time and I hope everybody stays cool this week and fall is coming.
Yeah, eventually. Thank you.